Good morning. It is Monday. It's a new month. It's February, and we have things to do, people to see, places to go. It's going to be a busy Monday morning show. I've got to tell you, we have guests. We have our live-in shrink, Dr. Hanan. We've got Leigh-Ann, who's not here yet, but she'll come walking in, doing the walk of shame in just a moment or two. And most importantly, have you here. Otherwise, why the hell would we bother doing this show, right? James and Flex producing, and you can drop us a comment if you're watching us live on YouTube this morning, and then you can be part of the conversation too. Wow, there's so much going on. The big news of the morning, Orange Man, Donald John Trump, says the following. You see, it was only a matter of time before he would eventually turn his attention to us. It's like the eye of Sauron, right? You know, it like surveys the land, and then suddenly it lands somewhere. Now, whether you think that's good or bad, that's up to you. But look at this. He says, South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. A massive human rights violation at a minimum is happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, we will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of this situation has been completed. So what this means is that clearly someone in Trump's circle have pointed out to him that South Africa actually has quite a lot of race-based laws. And we actually do. And it's something South Africans don't even talk about that much. And he doesn't like that. He says, you can't have laws that are against certain groups of people and for others, because this is a guy who has spent the last 4 years fighting for his survival, fighting for his freedom, fighting for his ability to be a citizen, let alone a presidential candidate, because the entire engine of state justice has been brought to bear against him. So he's got an axe to grind. And he doesn't like the idea that there are laws that would discriminate, you know, this group of people will apply those laws, that group of people will apply that law. So what are we actually talking about here? Well, we're going to speak to Colonel Chris Wyatt, who is in America at the moment, and we've had him on the show a couple of times before, and he's been all over this on social media. Also, there's talk of tariffs. I don't know if you noticed over the weekend. I want to save some of this for the latter part of the show as well. We'll get to it with Rob Hersov, who's also going to be our guest. It's going to be a busy morning. But there are tariffs that have been brought to bear on Canada and Mexico. Those were initiated last week. Canada has retaliated by saying, you know, Kendall, Justin Trudeau, got up in front of everybody and said, well, if you're going to make laws against us, then we're going to make laws against you. And we're going to put a 25% tariff on all American goods. And, you know, Trump just sat in his office and went, bring it on, little bitch. I'm ready for you. Because that's what he's like. So we're going to see what happens there. It's going to be a very bumpy ride. The next couple of years, I hope you got some tea or coffee this morning. There's going to be a lot of excitement. There's going to be a lot going on. Not all of it will be stuff you like. I'm just warning you. Oh, there she comes. Walk of shame. Hello, Leigh-Ann.
Hello. Hi. Oh, did you notice me coming in?
Oh, hi.
I thought I went in all stealthily.
No, at least you got the black memo, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, very important.
Memo.
You know, we all arrived at the office the other day. Everybody at The Real Network was wearing white.
Oh, that's an unusual color to
I know,
wear.
and it was on a Monday. I think it was last Monday, or was it the week before? And everybody was wearing white. No messages, no memo actually went out or anything. It's just bizarre. Everybody was wearing white. And then the next, 2 days later, we were all wearing a different color. Everybody.
Yeah, it's like your periods are starting to sink.
I think so. I think something's starting to happen. Anyway, we were talking a little bit about Trump when you came in, because there's a lot going on in America at the moment, and there's a lot going on in South Africa at the moment. We also have to, at some point, do a catch-up on Rwanda.
Yeah, it's all happening.
It's all happening. It's certainly not a boring start to the year. And it's only February.
Thank goodness it's February finally, after 4 months of January.
It did feel like the longest month in history, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what it was, because I was at an event on Friday. It was the only thing I did this weekend. I absolutely did. I often say I did nothing, but then I might have done a couple of things that were, kind of chilled. But this weekend, I honestly did bugger all. I did some work. I woke up pretty early. I went to gym, but I did nothing social. It was so good.
Mm.
It was so good because I just couldn't get myself to see a whole bunch of people. But I did go out on Friday night because I had this client event that I wanted to go to. And everybody there was saying, good Lord, this January's been long. And I said, yeah, that's why I'm going to be here for a short time. I'm out of here by 8, which I was.
Yeah.
I'm getting so boring, Leigh-Ann.
Oh.
I used to do things.
I spent the whole weekend in bed because I have bronchitis. So
I've got bronchitis.
I got bronchitis.
So funny, my dad got sick the other day, and then my mum got sick. So they've also been. So I said to them, I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But they're getting sick, and it's summer. And then there was rain last night, which was weird too. So now we've covered all the boring stuff. Illness, weather,
no social life,
the calendar, and no social life. So we've done all of the things. Unbelievable. All right. So there are a lot of interesting things going on, as I said, in America at the moment. But there's also stuff going on here. So where do you want to start? Let's take a look at what's going on. It's our job to inform people, right?
Yeah.
First thing on a Monday morning.
We
what
have
else
to
are you
inform
going to do?
ourselves of everything, which means we know a little bit about everything,
Right.
but
Okay.
nothing about
Correct.
anything really.
Okay. So let's start with this. Johannesburg's infrastructure, this is a surprise, in case you didn't know, is in crisis. Surprise. 78% of our bridges in Johannesburg are in poor condition, or in very poor condition.
Well, there are a lot of times the steel bars are taken out the sides.
Yep. But of course, the people who are going to recycle the steel, they don't care about public infrastructure because they think, that belongs to other people.
Or the government will just put more there that I can take.
They'll just put more there. Yeah. So this is what's happened. Apparently, we need 16 billion rand for repairs. The city's water system is also facing chronic shortages due to leaks and outdated pipes, losing nearly 40% of our water that just gets lost. Roads are plagued with potholes. Well, we know about that. And they require 81.5 billion rand in maintenance. This seems like a lot of money. I think to build those roads originally, when there were no roads, cost us a whole lot less. And there was a lot less material. Supply chains were much shittier. And I think people just worked harder. Like now, find people who are willing to work on the roads. They're going to be like, I would much rather be a lawyer. I don't know who we're going to find to build these things.
Yeah.
Anyway, the mayor, in case you've forgotten, his name is Dada Morero. At least he's not the Nyaupe mayor.
Yes.
Right. He says, there's decline. And okay, so I don't want to start our Monday on a horrible note, but yes, there's decline. I have not seen any, when you drive down the road and you're like, wow, this is a pretty road. The grass is cut. The road itself is in good condition. The curbstones aren't broken and sticking out into the road. There aren't like weeds growing everywhere. This is a great road. I haven't seen that road, wherever it may be, for like the last 4 or 5 years. It just feels like Johannesburg compared to, say, Cape Town. I know this really grates the ANC,
even
but
Pretoria,
it's true.
even no, not Pretoria, Mpumalanga.
Pretoria is a disaster.
Sorry,
too.
Mpumalanga onwards. Looks really, really good.
Well, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because Johannesburg feels like it's falling apart. Anyway, he says, I acknowledge this, but efforts are underway to restore stability through financial troubles and underfunding, which are hindering the process, but we will try to recover on all of those vectors. Yeah, sure. I mean, how about we just tidy up? Because that would be a great start. If you live in your own filth, you cannot expect anyone to treat you with dignity. Like, this is an ugly reality that I do wish I didn't have to say, but it needs saying.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tidy up your house if you want people who are visiting you to have some respect for you.
Yeah.
If you live in filth and litter and ordure, then you are going to be treated like a pig who lives in filth and dirt and litter and ordure. So I think we've got a city in Johannesburg, which it makes me embarrassed to be living in. I am disgusted at the state of our city. I'm humiliated when people I know from anywhere in the world, and even people I know from the rest of this country, come here to Johannesburg to do business, to visit, to be with friends and family, to come and check the place out for the first time. And you have to acknowledge, whether you like it or not, that when they see the state of the place, they're a little disappointed. Even if people like me are going around, and we had interviews last year with people who are writing books about Joburg and, telling stories about Joburg, and their podcasts and their documentaries that are being done. And, we've had some of these people in the studio, and some of them are doing their best to put Joburg's best foot forward. But our best foot in Johannesburg is a club foot at the moment. It's just, it's horrible. Okay. We really are a city that is in complete decline, and this government, and particularly this municipality, the government that runs the city of Johannesburg, has done absolutely nothing to make me feel better about it. Nothing.
Yeah.
The only thing that's happening that's good is the stuff that private enterprise is doing, or when individuals go to the trouble of making sure that their own garden verge on the edge of the road is looked after.
Mm-hmm.
And that's people spending their own money to make their own little area of some neighborhood a little bit better. People live in estates, or they boom off certain areas, and everybody's like, oh, it's so unfair. You're trying to make this elite. The fact is, the only way any parts of Johannesburg will still be habitable and people will still want to live in those places is if the people who already live in those places look after them.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the city government, the municipality. They're not going to do a goddamn thing. They don't. Everywhere you look, it just looks like a shithole. So when Trump says, oh, you're a shithole country, because that's how we started the show this morning, that's what he said about 8 years ago. Don't get upset, because if you look around, we kind of are. Look in the mirror, and if someone's insult hurts you, it's probably because it's true. And in Johannesburg, we've got a lot of fucking cleaning up to do.
So Pothole Patrol, I noticed
Here we
over
go.
the weekend.
All right.
Which is a private enterprise, works with Discovery. You know how many potholes they've filled since inception?
How many?
258,000.
And how many of those were filled by the government? Zero.
No, these were all, yes, well, exactly. They were all private.
Right. So, but here's the problem, right? And this is something that came up years ago. If private enterprise steps in and starts doing the things that government's meant to do, then why have a government? So why pay taxes?
Because, and what is the government going to do with the funds that they were meant to use for
well,
that?
We know, right? So the mayor of Johannesburg is out there saying we need 81.5 billion rand to maintain our roads. We need 16 billion rand to repair bridges. Well, I pay my rates and taxes, apart from my actual taxes, every month. And what have I got for that? Yeah. What has anybody in the city of Johannesburg got for that? So where is it going? You pay separately for water, electricity, rubbish removal, right? So where's it going? And I think when you start a new year, you look at what you're spending money on and you go, I think, maybe I should cancel this, because even though it's nice to get the subscription to that thing or whatever it might be, I can't really afford it. So you take it off your list. Maybe you cancel a membership somewhere, or you stop paying for some kind of thing that you really enjoy, because you look at it and you go, I can't afford this. And then you look at how much you're paying in rates and taxes, and you're like, I should cancel that, because I'm getting no value for it.
Yeah, I still have to drive over the same potholed road every day.
So when great business, Discovery, I think that they're an amazing business. They do tremendous work. They are A lot of people don't like them because of the way they do or don't pay them out on an individual basis in some claim. I'll tell you what, I think that they're a professional operation. You may have your own personal disagreements with them, but that is a case-by-case basis. I think it's hard to run a business like that in South Africa, and power to anyone who can. Plus, they are seemingly very good at what they do, or they wouldn't still be around and be generating the money that they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so good for them that they're also fixing potholes for all those people who complain about them all the time. They are making the city better. But the problem is, once they take that responsibility on, government just goes, oh, okay.
It's like doing something for your child.
You become a helicopter parent.
When you do their homework, or if they come with chores and you end up doing them for them, they're just going to spend their energy elsewhere, playing or doing something that they shouldn't be doing. But yeah, that also brings me to this convention that I saw in Nevada. And there's a clip that I've got on it as well, speaking of potholes.
Okay. Because they're finding really cool ways to fix these things.
This has been called the world's easiest way to install pothole patches.
Okay.
And it was at a trade show in Vegas. And there are these like big tea bags, enormous tea bags filled with what you would normally use. Yeah, those are them.
And then what do they do?
Inside is cold patch asphalt. And that hardens just like normal asphalt. So those flexible tea bags, you're able to just purchase yourself and fix your own potholes if you really want to. No tools required.
Wow.
No, nothing. You just need a few of those bags. You fill them into the cracks, lay them over each other. You don't even need to be precise. And what happens is, as nature takes its course, so say rain, and then the pressure of the cars driving over it, it slowly forms and melts and shapes into the potholes. Look at that. Completely sealed.
Wow, Leigh-Ann, look at this. You should pass this on to Dada Morero.
Absolutely. I thought it was amazing. And then you get different sized ones as well. So these ones are kind of smaller. So if you have one of those ones that have just started, that could go in there. The only thing is, because it takes a while for them to become hardened, I guess once you've laid your tea bags, you might have to camp on the side of the road and wait until they're squashed.
That's okay.
Else someone's going to take them.
When I see city municipal workers, they usually are just sitting around waiting anyway. I don't see them doing
Waiting
anything.
for the tar to dry.
I see them driving in a lot of like City of Joburg cars and spending more of our money on petrol, often eating in the cars. But I certainly don't see them working. Yeah,
sleeping on the grass.
Yeah, having a doo-doos on the side of the road. Nice. So, okay, I know this is a rabbit hole down which we can keep going forever, and I don't want us to sit and moan. I do want to talk to Colonel Chris Wyatt, who we've had on the show too. Is he there? Okay, brilliant. Hey, Chris, how the hell are you?
Well, Gareth, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people in Springfield. Listen, I've warned South Africa and the politicians there for years that this was coming down the pike. I'm surprised it didn't happen in the first administration. So many people worked against Trump.
All right, let's give everybody the context first, because even Leigh-Ann arrived late to this party. So let's just let everybody know what's going on. So Trump tweets out, and it was only a matter of time before the Eye of Sauron ended up landing on us, right? So this is what he had to say this morning. He goes, South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation, and the radical left media doesn't want to give it so much as a mention. A massive human rights violation at a minimum is happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of this situation has been completed. So what's he talking about?
Yeah.
Well, very simple to answer your question. People have to understand that there's a whole lot of confusion about what was going on recently with the aid freeze, foreign assistance, and there were exemptions for that. So here's the thing. The assistance that's approved for foreign aid is in the budget or a continuing resolution. It's approved by law. The president signs it. So the money that's currently coming to South African NGOs to pay for HIV and for other things like that is coming under law. So Trump, unless he has a legitimate reason, can't suspend that. He can freeze it, but he can't suspend it. And so what he's saying, in my view, is that the money that's allocated for this year will continue for the rest of this fiscal year, which runs through 30 September. However, he gave a warning there, and he spoke at Andrews Air Force Base later in the evening when he landed there, or he's taken off from there, he said that he will be taking other action, basically. So I can tell you tomorrow, wake up South Africa and watch the Rand tank below 20-1. And after that happens, get ready for AGOA access to be suspended, and then potentially tariffs to be placed on South Africa if South Africa doesn't take action. So it's not going to get pretty from here on out. And look, I'm not here all doom and gloom, Gareth. There's a solution for South Africans. I can tell you I can fix this, and you've got to flood your politicians and your civil organizations. I'll get to that in a moment. But it's not all doom and gloom, but it's not good news for South Africa at all.
No, all right. So let's look at what's going to happen here, because we know that the first thing that's going to happen is the ANC going to do what they're very good at and go into victim mentality and go, it's very unfair. Why is he being mean to us? Right? That is what's going to happen.
Racism.
Yeah. There'll be that. I mean, even though he hasn't done this to Kenya or Algeria or Uganda or anyone else, he's specifically targeting South Africa because he believes that there are things going on here that are not okay, like race-based discrimination in affirmative action, BEE, that kind of thing, which South Africans have become so completely mesmerized by that we've forgotten that this is not how people should behave, where we shouldn't be drafting laws against or for specific racial groups. It's just wrong. You can try to defend it any way you like. And in South Africa, most of us go, I don't think B and affirmative action are a problem, even though for 30 years, all we've seen them do is make an elite group of people in the ANC rich. It takes a while to get through all that noise in people's heads that's been created mostly by our own media when they were once powerful, before people could think for themselves. And now to get them to think, okay, actually we should be in a place 30 years after 1994 where we don't have laws that specifically target a race group to not get jobs, to not have access to certain things, which is what our laws do. We have more race-based laws now than we had prior to 1994, which is a horrible thing for most people to come to terms with, but it's the truth. And you can go and look it up. You can find all the sources that are available publicly. This is not a controversial thing. Most South Africans just don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it. It feels like it's too controversial. Our own DA in this country, who you know well, Chris, they're like, well, we're not entirely against BEE or affirmative action. We think it's important that those things are there, because they're too scared to say that they don't agree with race-based laws.
100%. And in fact, this is a human rights violation of epic proportions. South Africa has signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and they must adhere to that, and they're not adhering to it. Also, their constitution, which was promulgated under a majority black rule government in 1996, calls for non-racialism in the treatment of South Africans. And in fact, broad-based black economic empowerment is anything but not race-based. It's very much based on that. And it's selecting government tenders only for companies that are majority black owned is also a serious concern. But this situation here has been building for years.
Let's just also throw this in. Sorry, Chris, to interrupt you. Let's just throw in the fact that in the last year, 3 particular laws have come into play, which I think have also aggravated people in America who have a direct line to Trump, which may or may not be a good thing. Who knows? I mean, the left-wing media in this country are going to say it's a terrible thing, but there are probably people in this country who will go, oh my God, finally someone is hearing the voices of so many people in this country who've just been ignored for the longest time, right? So the first one's the Bella law, this education law, which is blatantly discriminatory and is cloaked under the guise of being something that's about kind of making education in the country more equitable, more accessible, more free. It's all of that stuff. We know what it really is. It's going up against Afrikaans medium institutions that are trying to teach people in their home language. And frankly, also Zulu and Xhosa and Sotho and other institutions that are going to be sidelined. It's going to help a lot of illegal immigrants into South Africa's education system for free and disadvantage lots of legal South Africans, citizens. So there's a big problem with the Bella Act, and I'm really just scratching the surface on that one. The second thing is the expropriation bill, which was turned into an act just the other day by our president, which allows the government to seize any property without having to give any compensation to anybody. They can set the compensation at 0. And that is a flouting of all the laws around property, which are age-old and which any civilized and decent country in the world knows it has to abide by. Otherwise, they do not have an economy to speak of. If you can't prove that you have ownership of the coffee mug, you can't sell the coffee mug, you can't buy more coffee mugs, you don't know how much your coffee mug is worth. Therefore, there's no reason for you to interact economically with anyone else. And the third one is obviously the, what's the other one? The
National Health Insurance?
National Health Insurance, thank you very much. Which is, of course, about kind of, Panyaza Lesufi made a big fuss of this over the weekend. He said, oh, the NHI is about making healthcare accessible to more South Africans. No, it's not. It's about looting the medical aids, the one place that they haven't got their filthy, dirty, thieving hands on yet. Isn't that what it is?
Well, there's actually, it's about that, but it's also about looting. Well, that's for the medical aid, but the expropriation is about, a lot of people get wrapped around the axle about land. It definitely is land, but property explicitly spelled out in Section 25 of South Africa's Constitution says property is not just land. Anything. It's all property. It's stocks, it's bonds, it's pension funds. So you talk about NHI going after the health schemes. Yes, I agree. But expropriation without compensation is about going after retirement funds. You're going to just take 10% and go, oh, we need this. And they're going to need it so that we can balance the scale. It's not that. But you left one thing off, Gareth, which is being talked about. It's not law yet, but it was proposed by Parks Tao, a 3% corporate tax after profit on businesses to fund exclusively Black-owned businesses. So what the South African government is telling you is that businesses, Black and white in South Africa, whoever owns them, and those who own the shares from abroad on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange or American Depository Receipts, you have to pay 3% of your corporate profit to fund companies owned by people based on their skin pigmentation. And oh, by the way, they're probably your competitors and they have a leg up on you in getting contracts with the government because they meet the standards. This is sick, and it flies in the face of all international norms. This is a rogue regime that needs to be brought to heel.
All right. So what does that mean for South Africa? You said the rand's going to tank. Obviously, investors will get very, very frightened. Let's just talk also about USAID, because a lot of people don't know what that is. They assume that that's some benevolent foundation that the US has set up in countries like South Africa, where they hand out money for all sorts of good causes like antiretrovirals and, you know, community initiatives and things that are meant to raise people out of poverty. So let's first talk about what those effects might be, and second of all, what USAID is.
Well, the effects for South Africa could be catastrophic, especially in the healthcare sector. If you're going to try NHI and take state control of the health sector, it's not going to be very helpful to lose $400 million a year in annual funding, which is what flows into South Africa through USAID for healthcare, primarily for HIV/AIDS, but not exclusively, also for many other issues, neonatal issues and things like that. That money will disappear in the next fiscal year if Trump sticks to his promise he just made this evening. And that's going to be catastrophic because the South African government can't make up that what, 4 billion or 5 billion rand. Where's that going to come from? And so that's going to put a crimp in this plan to do NHI. It's just, I think it's scuppered NHI. It was already on the ropes, and I think Discovery will come out screaming loudly, and they're probably the most influential player in this marketplace. So that's the first part. The second part, what is USAID? USAID is the United States Agency for International Development. It was built decades ago to deliver foreign assistance. And unfortunately, in the early days, they did some great work across Africa, building roads and clinics and schools and hospitals, things like that. But they gave money to governments. And by the 1970s and 80s, we realized that a lot of that money was simply being stolen and misused and misappropriated for dictators and corrupt governments across the continent and around the world, but especially in Africa. So they shifted to a model that's more based on using third parties. So most of the money that comes to South Africa never goes to the government of South Africa. So if you're worried about the ANC stealing it, they can't get their hands on it. But what it does do is it allows South Africa's government to not pick up the cost, the full cost, and then they take credit for things. So for instance, no pharmaceutical companies in South Africa developed antiretrovirals. Those are developed at tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars research costs and testing by US pharmaceuticals by and large. So we bore the cost of that. And then we send subsidized rates of these drugs to South Africa to keep 7 million, 8 million South Africans alive. Now, not all of them are antiretrovirals. So this could have a devastating impact. The ANC claims that they spend all the money on HIV today. Well, they spend a lot of money, but they refused to spend money 20 years ago. And if it wasn't for the United States pouring money in, $8.1 billion, Gareth, 150 billion rand in HIV assistance alone since 2003, 22 years, that's 150 billion rand that the South African government didn't have to spend for counseling and testing, for antiretrovirals, for care, for nevirapine, for all these different things. And that is a burden that the South African taxpayers are going to have to pick up. And frankly, the money isn't there. So this is disastrous. I don't think it's going to come to that. I think that we'll get a solution. And I have a solution for you if you're ready for it.
Go on. Let's hear it. Let's get straight to that.
All right.
People don't want more bad news first thing on a Monday morning. And by the way, thanks for staying up late for us to talk us through this. I'll get to something else I want to ask you about, but give us the solution.
All right, here's the solution. And this astounds me that South Africans don't know their constitution better. But I understand it's like 78 pages long, whereas our constitution is the most, as Trump would say, it's the most beautiful document in the world. You know, it's just a short and concise.
It's so beautiful.
Exactly. It is so beautiful. But our constitution is beautiful. And the South African constitution fairly is modeled
It's beautiful
off of ours.
too. Yeah.
It is. The South African constitution is beautiful, but it's very liberal. And that's nothing bad with that. But Section 80 of the South African Constitution allows for a challenge to laws. You have 30 days from the date the president signs an act into law,
right,
to get 1/3 of the parliament to send a letter to the Constitutional Court to review this. Now, the Constitutional Court, upon receiving that letter, can put a stay on the law, freeze it, not allow it to be enacted until it decides on the constitutionality of it. I've already gone through the numbers. The parties that say they oppose it, now I have to add the Patriotic Alliance and Gate McKenzie because his 9 votes come over. So with his 9 votes, that means there are 128 members of parliament in the DA, the Freedom Front Plus, which says they're going to lead this initiative, Action SA, which is not in a coalition but is against this, and then also the PA. That's 128. You need 132. So they need to go to Bosa, Musi Maimane, if he's still bumhurt about the DA, maybe get him to come over with his 2 members. And I don't know about General Bantu Holomisa, who's a personal friend of mine, and I would hope that he would have reason would prevail. If he brought his 2 members over, that's 133 or 132, 133, something like that. That gets you there. But even without that, MK and EFF are also angry about it because it doesn't go far enough. They want to confiscate it and give it to the state. So that's 58 votes with MK and 39 with the EFF. So together, you put all those together, you wind up with about 230 votes in parliament.
Enough, yeah.
That's a pretty strong message. Yeah, but you could get to 133. That's all you need. And this should go. You must, South Africa, right now, South Africa, Mzansi, Azania, get off your bum and contact your local politician in your metro.
People don't know who
Send them WhatsApp.
People don't know who their local politicians are, and they're so lazy.
It's all online.
All we do, Chris, is every 4 years we get to, we're going to go and vote, and then we complain. We think that that's going to solve all our problems if the right party gets in, and it won't if the wrong party gets in. I agree with you. We've all got to put pressure on our MPs. We've got to also find ways in civil society, like we were talking about before I put you on, to deal with this government and their rapaciousness. It just seems like their desire to get their hands into all of our pockets as citizens is just, it's unending. All right, leave South Africa alone for a second. I want to ask you what you think of Justin Trudeau kind of being a little combative. And I mean, I say that because beta males like him are very seldom able to be combative and aggressive, but he stood up and we're gonna give you 25% tariff right back, Mr. Trump. Pew, 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 pew. So what do we think is going on there? And how do you think this relationship between America and Canada is changing? We'll leave Mexico out for the moment, but I thought it was pretty funny because Canada has imposed tariffs on American goods for years already, and America's just done nothing. It's like sat idly by. Now, suddenly, when America decides to enforce what the American people have given a mandate to the president to sort out all of this stuff, now suddenly Canada's going to go to war with America on trade. What do you think this is all about?
Well, I think it's all about woke policies in Canada. Their abuse of the truckers a few years ago. Our politicians who are now in charge haven't forgotten. That was a violation of the Canadian Basic Charter of Rights, which ironically was brought into existence by Pierre Trudeau, little Juicy Trudeau's father. And the guy first got to violate.
Maybe his father, but
Okay, I know, Castro. Okay, whatever. But he does look remarkably like Fidel. But anyway, the point here is that so Trudeau is the first person to violate it. He used terrorism laws to stop lawful protest that was annoying and disruptive, but it was lawful by the truckers, destroying their lives. Unbelievable what's happened in Canada. So our politicians haven't forgotten that. Also, Canada is a freeloader. Canada only spends 1.2% of its GDP on national defense. They're part of the North American air defense system. They're freeloaders. I mean, honestly, they're getting a free ride. They're worse than most countries in NATO.
You are paying more for Canada's national security than Justin Trudeau is as Prime Minister. You, Chris Wyatt.
Correct. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. I'm not that wealthy, but so probably. But 1.2%. A decade ago, Canada agreed, when this guy came in, they agreed they would pay 2% of their GDP towards national defense. They're not doing it. We spend 3.5% of our GDP, and they get a free ride. So it's a whole lot of stuff going on. Trump is saying it's about fentanyl and it's about the illegal immigrants, and that's true. I've been warning people for decades about the northern border and being ignored, but now people are paying attention to the northern border. But that's a real problem because Canada's not put a good faith effort forward there. So it is about that. But Trump also kind of alluded to something recently, saying that Canada's taking us for suckers with trade, and that's fair point. Canadian national tax rate is only 15%.
How do you see this ending? Do you see Justin Trudeau stepping down and getting out of the way and kind of backing off of this, or do you see it being like a game of one-upmanship where, I don't know, Justin thinks he can compete? I mean, it'll be funny to watch, right?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a chance of one-upmanship. Canada doesn't have a lot of ammunition or arrows in its quiver here. Their relationship with the United States is more important to them than it is to us. It's important to us, and we're really good neighbors. But I'm not, I know you're laughing, but it's true. I mean, so what are we going to do? Stop buying maple syrup? We're also the world's second largest producer of maple syrup. We'll grow our own maple syrup. And I'll tell you what, I'm a beekeeper, so I encourage people to buy American-produced honey.
I saw
Just go buy honey.
I saw Chuck Schumer, the Democrat leader in the Senate. He stood up with a Corona beer and an avocado, and he's like, well, if we put in these tariffs against Mexico, we won't have any beer or any avocados. I'm like, really? Corona's, that's terrible beer in any case.
Yeah, that's not beer. That's what we call bottled urine. But no, sorry, I'm a bit of a beer snob. I only drink beer brewed by the Reinheitsgebot. So in Southern Africa, it's only Windhoek lager. But anyway, Canada has, look, they're going to hurt Canadians more than hurt Americans. So here's the three impacts of tariffs that people don't discuss. And Pumzile Van Dam was on Twitter earlier today saying Americans don't get tariffs. And I had to respond to her and saying that you're missing the point entirely. It's about us losing our industrial base and companies taking advantage of our marketplace, coming in here with low or no tariffs, producing goods that were produced in America overseas, and we're getting the stiff. And so Trump wants to bring that back, and that's why he's doing it. That's a big part of it. But anyway, so the three things with tariffs. Number one, companies will ship. So Canada sends $100 worth of maple syrup to the U.S. tomorrow. Well, $25, my friend, $125. Well, the guy delivering at the border is going to go, nope, and take it back to the factory, and they're not going to get a sale. Or they're going to pay the $25 and try to pass it on to the consumer. But if I can get honey cheaper than I can get Canadian maple syrup, I'm going to buy honey. I'm not going to buy Canadian maple syrup. So I'll seek a market alternative. That's going to make them too pricey. And U.S. manufacturers will gain. Those who sell maple syrup from New England will have more maple syrup available to sell because we can produce more, and they'll profit and gain market share. That's the second option. And the third option, and it's tough with the 25% tariff, but the Chinese 10% is a lot easier. They'll eat the difference. And it's the same with AGOA. If the U.S. suspends South Africa from AGOA, wine producers in the Western Cape like Constantia and all the others will probably just eat the 2% loss because they'll just have to pay 2% tax to get in the marketplace and not raise the prices so they don't lose market share. So consumers can ultimately pay it, but I'll tell you who's going to pay the price. Canadians are going to pay for this badly. This is arrogance by leftists who think they understand macroeconomics and couldn't find their way out of a economics 101 class at undergraduate level. Trust me, they don't know what they're talking about. They are going to suffer. I think the end result of this is going to be, we already know Trudeau's resigning. He's just a coward. He's like Angela Merkel. I'll resign in 3 years. What the heck is that? Now, he's going to resign when they have a replacement for him. I have a replacement for him. I can replace the leader of the Liberal Party in Canada tonight. I have a doorknob. It's more competent than Juicy Trudeau. So let's go with that.
Okay. And also, I think what you've just said about kind of leftists in government and how they don't understand macroeconomics is so true. But wait and see how the usual candidates in the media as well, and your left-wing media in America and our mainstream media here in South Africa, they're all already lining up behind the Trump is bad and mean. And this is unfair and unkind. And why would he do this? And he must be a terrible, terrible, mean, horrible, nasty orange man. Because that's kind of been their hymnal for the last, 8 years? And they don't have any new ideas. And they don't understand macroeconomics, and they don't want to understand macroeconomics. They want their narrative to work, and they'll keep trying. So I'm just going to warn everybody, you're going to read a lot of bullshit in the headlines in the next couple of weeks. And yes, there is going to be some economic pain here or there, but it takes someone who's actually got the balls to move things in a certain direction in order for things to happen. So whether you like it or not, this guy's got balls, he's making things happen. And all these ballless, gormless people all over the rest of the world who've just been accepting the situation as it is are going to be bulldozed the hell out of the way.
Well, Gareth, I don't know how much time we have left, how long you're going to have me on, but
2 minutes.
I do want to get this across. 2 minutes. So I want to get this across before we go. Here's the bottom line. South Africa is a sovereign state. The ANC can do what they want, and that's their prerogative. But we're under no obligation when you ship arms to Russia, when they're sanctioned, when you vote against denouncing Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when you slap 75% tariffs on our poultry products, when you treat us like crap, we're under no obligation to give you generous duty-free access to our marketplace for 5,600 goods and services that allow your manufacturers to produce hundreds of thousands of jobs in South Africa. We have no obligation because there's no reciprocity. We don't get duty-free entry in your market. We're not asking for it. We're just asking you to respect property rights and other things. So we're under no obligation to do that. We're under no obligation to give you $500 million a year in assistance that you're too lazy or unwilling to provide to your own people. That is not our obligation. And we are under no obligation to sponsor loans from the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and others on your behalf. You're on your own. You do what you want. There's no neocolonialism. You're complaining about, we're racist, we're imperialist, vaccine apartheid. What a crock that was. We gave you $711 million to produce vaccine at Aspen Pharmacare, and not one jab has been produced yet. Not one jab 3 years ago. So I'm tired of the nonsense. And I think a lot of people in DC are. And I warned South Africa's government, but they're not listening. You know what? You reap what you sow. And there's a new sheriff in town. It's time to galvanize South Africa. Get out there, inundate your local municipal councilors, inundate your political parties, go march in the streets, get a permit, go to parliament, do everything you can. You got 20 days left to change the course. And if it gets changed and this gets rescinded and declared unconstitutional, Trump will back down. I'm pretty sure he'll do that. That's what I have to say on the matter. Thanks, Gareth.
So we have choices to make. Yeah, there he is. Fuck around and find out, right? So there we go. Sorry, Leigh-Ann, I think you passed out a little bit during that.
Jeez.
But there we go. Chris Wyatt on fire first thing in the morning. Yeah. Don't say you don't get information from us and we just talk nonsense about celebrities with big tits. We do that too.
Yeah, we do that too.
All right. We've got some sport with James coming up in a short while. But first, it is time for our appointment with the shrink. That's fine. We can wait for the shrink. He waits for us. Actually, he waits for nobody. Our shrink. That's true. All right. So we'll get to Dr. Hanan in just a moment or two. We do have some sport with James later on. Rob Hersov will be joining us from Cape Town, where he's also been all over the place in the last couple of days, talking about everything that we've already discussed with Chris Wyatt and a whole lot more. So, you know what? A lot of people really don't like Rob because I think he's one of those people who actually stands up and says what he thinks. And sometimes he's wrong, like you're wrong or I'm wrong. But the people who really don't like him, I don't know what they want. Do they want him to shut up and mind his own business? Do they want him to not exercise his right to freedom of speech? I don't get it. I think the more the merrier. There are lots of people online who I don't want to listen to. I think there are a lot of bullshit artists on X.
Yeah.
People who've made a living out of talking absolute heaps of steaming nonsense. But you got to let them, right? We live in a country where you're able to express yourself. So for all the faults that we have in South Africa, and we've covered a lot of those in the first hour this morning, a lot of the problems that we have, this is one thing that I honestly believe is that we have one of the most free speech rich constitutions, situations, circumstances available to anyone. You could say whatever you want about the president and he can't do a damn thing about you. He can't. I mean, he can try, and if he were a little more, if he had more of a spine, maybe he would. But he's actually not interfering in free speech. We have volumes of opinion that erupt every other day on Twitter and everywhere else, by the way. And that's a good thing. So for all the problems we have, that's one thing that you can cling to. And believe me, the country that gets to speak openly the most, that encourages and allows the most free expression, will ultimately become a better country. So it's not all doom and gloom. That is one thing that we can be very proud of.
Like a relationship, being able to be honest in a relationship.
Don't they say that communication makes
everything?
Communication in a marriage is everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go. And we're not just talking about marriages, but any kind of relationship, friendship, and parent-child, whatever it might be.
Man-dog,
Man-dog.
whatever.
Hey, by the way, I saw this just quickly before we get to Dr. Hanan. I think this is pretty hilarious. Apparently, people who have dogs, and I know you have cats, so I thought of you when I saw this.
I've had dogs.
Okay, yeah, I know you, and you don't dislike dogs, right?
No, I love them.
Yeah. So here's something that I thought was quite fun. Apparently, people who have dogs are likely to be able to fight dementia better than people who don't have dogs. So I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know whether it applies to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's only dogs. It may be cats too. I think it's pets in general. I've read many studies on that.
Dog ownership reduces the risk of dementia by 40%, while cats make no difference.
Are you being serious?
I'm serious. So that's what it says. So this is from a study by the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute for Geriatrics and Gerontology. You know them. You've worked with them a lot.
All the time.
Yeah.
Good friends
They
of mine.
found that owning a dog can reduce the risk of dementia by... I can't remember.
You were talking
I've
about
just
the risk
forgotten.
of dementia.
What was that, dear? What was I talking about just a moment ago? So if you have a dog, less chance of dementia, apparently, according to these guys. You have a cat, no difference.
That's very strange. I know that it can.
It's because no, I'll tell you why. It's because you walk dogs. The dog is more of a companion than a cat is, even though people have companion cats. And of course, I know people who, the cats are their life. And routine care helps stimulate cognitive function, reinforcing the connection between an active lifestyle and brain health. The findings emphasize the potential pet ownership, particularly dogs, in promoting overall well-being and reducing the likelihood of cognitive decline. So get a dog, Leigh-Ann.
Get a dog.
Or else you're going to go fucking dilly.
Gotta get another dog.
All right, let's get to our Dr. Hanan appointment. I'm so sorry, Doc. We're a little late for our appointment. Can we sit down on the sofa in your office and start?
Definitely. How was your week and how does it make you feel?
I'm so glad you asked. All right, let's get going straight away. So let's just talk about motivation because we're starting a new year. And I know that many people, there's no lack of motivation in me. I list things, I've got goals, I've got timelines, I've got deadlines, all of that shit. And I'm probably, I'm maybe a bit of an outlier here, and not always in a good way. We discussed last week how, there are people who they just never feel like they're doing enough. They always feel like they're being lazy, even if they are doing a lot. And you kind of punish yourself, and life can become an absolute hell if you are like that. But there's so many people who just, listening to us this morning, they must be thinking, oh, for God's sake, can you guys just calm it down? Just slow down. Just stop it. I'm not motivated. I don't want to get up this morning. I feel like I've got very little that I really am excited about doing this week. And it's a new month, blah, blah, blah. Shove it up your ass. They're not that interested in this stuff. What can we do to help people who are seriously stuck in terms of motivation? Because there's no shortage of these books by motivational speakers and experts. There's no shortage of talks online. There's no shortage of charlatans out there who will invite you to some course and fill your head with all kinds of fun stuff and light shows and entertainment. And then you walk out of there and you're stuck back where you were.
Right. So motivation is one of my favorite things to discuss. Because so many people get it wrong. Motivation is this drive and need to achieve a particular goal, or a drive and a need to avoid a specific level of pain. So it's moving towards the carrot and moving away from the stick. And we all want motivation.
Yes.
Because we feel it. We are motivated to eat. We are motivated to fall in love. We are motivated for intimacy. We are motivated for, any form of addiction or anything that gives us immediate gratification. So we know that that feeling is nice. It's nice to be motivated to go on a date. And it's nice to be motivated to have your favorite meal. And it's nice to be motivated to connect to somebody that you really, really, really love. So we think that that kind of feeling needs to translate to the gym, and need to translate to buying a house, or need to translate to working really hard, or needs to translate to every single minute of every single day in every relationship. And the reality of that's not true. You don't need to always be driven to do things that are difficult, because that's not what life offers you. So life sometimes rewards you with a certain level of drive towards attaining something that you really want. But sometimes life says to you, listen, I'm not going to give you that sense of drive to go to the gym, but I need you to go to the gym anyway. And it is your responsibility to drive yourself, irrespective of your level of motivation, to do the things that you don't necessarily want or are driven to do, but rather things that you need to do because you are an adult. So the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is that we all have these high and low levels of motivation, and they come up at random times. The difference between successful and unsuccessful is successful people respond to life irrespective of how they feel. Unsuccessful people get driven by their feelings. So when they feel like doing something, then they do it. And then when they don't feel like doing something, they don't do it. Think about our New Year resolution when it comes to the gym. How many people have set up the goal of, I'm definitely taking care of my body this year, and January 5th comes along and suddenly, whatever, I'll start in February, or just before you know it, December comes and you don't do it. So you want to get to a position where, irrespective of how you feel, and we're going to talk about, I'd like to share with you some strategies on how to get there. But ideally, you want to drive your behavior irrespective of whether you feel like it or don't feel like it. Hence, whether I feel like going to the gym or don't feel like going to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym.
Well, it's easier said than done. So we have to talk about those two kinds of people. I think we can rest assured that the people who don't need the motivation, who are already doing this stuff, are okay. But again, do you think that the people who aren't in that position, the people who struggle to motivate themselves, who feel like they need a little bit of help, do you think that there's any way for them to change that permanently? Or is it a helpless situation? Yes. I mean, we don't want to give people zero hope out there.
No, I don't believe in it. And I'm yet to see somebody that doesn't have the correct tools, that doesn't perform at least better from their current baseline position. So here's something that I want people to really understand. So we spoke about unsuccessful people who let their emotions drive their behavior. So think of a car. Unsuccessful people allow the emotion to be in the driver's seat and the behavior in the back seat. So if I feel like doing it, I'm going to do it. And if I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it. Some people, and this doesn't work either, and I'll tell you in a minute why, some people have the behavior in the driver's seat and the emotions in the back. So we call it grit, it's a new buzzword, grit. You got to grit it out. And the reason why that doesn't work is because you only have so much grit in your system. And grit is like, you wake up on a Saturday and you're like, well, I promised myself to go to the gym. I promised myself to do X, Y, and Z. And now I'm going to just force myself to do it. Well, that can't last. It just doesn't last. We only have so much grit, and eventually that runs dry. Because grit is filled by sleep, and it's filled by life circumstances, and it gets depleted by those things as well, which are random.
Absolutely.
The best solution, listen to this, and this is important for everybody, and press replay on this. Here's the formula that I live by. This is my philosophy that I live by and the philosophy that I teach.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the formula. Blueprint or framework plus discipline equals result. Blueprint plus discipline equals result. People think result is based on discipline, which is correct, but nobody will tell you how discipline is built. The precursor for discipline is having the correct framework. If you don't have a manual, a framework, a blueprint, a system that drives the discipline, then you can't be disciplined. So imagine building a house with a blueprint. Imagine building a house without a blueprint. Imagine running a project with a plan. Imagine running a project without a plan. It's the planning that is responsible for driving the behavior. So therefore, instead of having the behavior in the driving seat, what you want to do is you want to create a blueprint that drives the behavior that ultimately drives the emotion. The blueprint also does something else that's quite magical. So imagine two people that need to go to the gym. Person one has a blueprint. Monday, I'm going to go to a personal trainer. I've paid them 6 weeks in advance. I'm going between 4:30 and 5. Tuesday, I've got a friend coming up. They've got a blueprint. Person B, they're just going to wing it. If they both wake up on Monday morning and both don't feel like going to the gym, they're not motivated to go to the gym, the only one that's going is the one with the blueprint. The blueprint drives behavior irrespective of how you feel. So I'll just finish off by saying one more thing. Therefore, the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, listen to this. Unsuccessful people trust themselves to behave because they have to. Unsuccessful people trust themselves to behave. So, of course, I'm going to go to the gym on Monday. I have to.
Yeah.
Successful people don't trust themselves. Successful people are led and are forced by the blueprint to behave whether they feel like it or not. Successful people know that now I feel like going to the gym, but I have no idea what I will feel like on Monday. And therefore, I can't trust myself in driving myself to the gym on Monday. I got to create a blueprint that forces me to behave whether I feel like it or not. I'm no longer going to be in the driver's seat. The framework, the blueprint, the system is going to drive me.
It's actually quite a relief to feel like you can almost hand over that control to something else or someone else, and almost automate your life. But when it comes down to and we obviously don't have time for it, but when it comes down to the practicality of putting together this blueprint, what sort of careered person would be able to assist with something like that? If you said, these are the things I want to achieve, let's work on a blueprint together.
So if we had to double click on what a blueprint ultimately means, blueprint is divided into 3 parts. It's a vision, and the word that you used, Gareth, earlier, goal and strategy. Vision is ultimately my why. Goal is what do I want, and strategy is how do I get what I want. So why am I doing it? What do I want, and how do I get what I want? And then you follow the strategy in order to achieve a goal, in order to achieve the vision, which is your result. So ultimately, if you want to create a blueprint, it depends on which area of your life. Remember how many times on the show we discussed the anchors. So career, financial security, family, friends, romantic, diet, exercise, and sleep. And lean on professionals in those areas, in those fields, that will help guide you through the blueprint.
All right, I love it. And by the way, there's this huge bush of chest hair that's just suddenly appeared on you there. What that is.
That's great. That is great.
All right, Dr. Hanan. Listen, it's always good to see you, and have an excellent week. We'll catch up with you next Monday. Hopefully, lots of people be motivated between then and now. And if you're not, let your life go to shit. It's not my problem. I don't care. Cheers.
All right, guys, bye.
All right, that's all we got for this hour. But don't go away, because the extremely controversial and very rich Rob Hersov will be with us in the next hour to talk about all kinds of interesting shit. And I know it's going to be the kind of stuff that will be shared all over social media afterwards, because every time you have Rob on, nothing is just bland and middle of the road. So all of that and more on the way. Plus, Leigh-Ann has got some stuff for us as well. We have some fun. She wants to tell us, for example, about a woman who commented, "Hey guys," on her own wanted poster, and was then found hiding in a pile of toys. I kid you not. These are the kinds of stupid things that are going on all around you. So if you're feeling good or you're feeling horrible this morning, this is the place to be. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute.
I don't have any issues with people sleeping around. If you're wanting a strong relationship, it can't be started on the basis of we meet today, tomorrow we're sleeping together.
It used to be you'd go out somewhere social, you'd meet someone, you'd exchange numbers, and then you'd almost go on a series of dates before you even thought about sleeping together or taking things to the next step. This was in the age of models. That age is dead. Because now it's very fast. I can go on Tinder and I can find two things real quick because I'm cute. I can go out to the club and I can package one table there because they're drinking Savannah's. You check what I'm saying? Yeah. They're within my budget, you know? PH can go, he can operate because it's a champagne table. Yeah, bo? It depends on the man.
Indy 500, where you at with that?
I've just, you know, I've never understood it, but shout out to the milk.
Indy 500, 25th of May. Now, I'm bringing this up because this is actually, they say this is the single biggest sporting event, motorsport event of the year. Check the size of that trophy, okay? That's the Borg Warner Trophy, I think it's called. Borg Warner Trophy. What do you think that trophy's value is?
Just break it down for me. I have no idea.
That trophy is valued at $3 million, okay? It stands...
It looks like that.
It looks like... So, if you win, your face goes on the trophy. Actually, they put your face on it. Yeah, this thing is so cool. The Borg Warner Trophy is so ginormous. This has been going since 1911, the Indy 500.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the show. We are live. We are ready to go Monday morning. Thanks to Dr. Hanan, plenty of motivation. So, a lot to talk about in South Africa on this Monday, on the first Monday of February. And I see that we have come within the orbit of the great orange supernova that is Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So it's what's on everybody's mind this morning.
He's noticed us.
He's noticed it. Oh, hang on. I think I see something. I think I should say something. So here it comes. So in order to understand this a little better, we were going to talk to him anyway about all kinds of things that are going to happen in the potential future of a successful South Africa, or the road more traveled, which is the likely declination of the country even further. We'll see what's going to happen. And I can't think of a better person to talk to than a guy who causes controversy wherever he goes, even though he's saying normally perfectly reasonable things. He is Rob Hersov. He's an entrepreneur. He's a private investor. And he often has perspectives on business, which most people are frightened because they have no spines. They're frightened to speak in the media world. We're not frightened to have him on. We're thrilled to have him on. How are you, Rob?
Gareth, good to be back. I'm thrilled to be on your show. I'd like to be in your studio. And
I know. We were trying to do it a couple of weeks ago, and then you had some things you had to deal with, but I'm very happy to have you on today. In fact, it's probably auspicious that you're on today because, my God, have we got a lot to talk about. So where shall we begin? Because you have been paying extra special attention to what's been going on in America, not because, as many people in the media will say, that you're some kind of fan of us being a vassal state of the Americans, or because you think Donald Trump is the greatest man that ever lived, even if you do. It's because you are actually interested in the effects that happen in America and the consequences that will happen down the line for us in South Africa, because you live here, because this is where you're invested, because this is where you have been an active citizen for a very long time. So tell us what you think since November, when the election was won, until this very groundbreaking, earth-shattering tweet that's got everybody agog on Twitter this morning. What's going on between South Africa and America, and what you think Trump's effects on us might be?
So there are an enormous amount of South Africans living in America, internationally connected South Africans, around Donald Trump. In Donald Trump's orbit, there are tons. I mean, Elon Musk as the obvious one.
Yeah.
Sachs is another.
David Sachs,
cryptos are, but there are tons of other very influential, powerful, wealthy, successful South Africans.
Well, there's Gary Player. I mean, he's big friends with Trump. He and Trump are actual friends. And then there are lots of other people whose names we don't know, but who have direct access to this guy. And if you can get into his zone, he actually will listen to everybody in that zone and act, sometimes precipitously, but he will do things, right?
So Elon Musk was asked the other day about South Africa. Is there a chance? Is there any point worrying about South Africa? Should Trump care? Should America care? Should anyone care? Or was South Africa finished? And I think it was Rian Barnard. So Gary Player is the most influential South African with Donald Trump, the most respected South African by Donald Trump. And he's an incredible South African patriot. We should all thank him for eternity. But Rian Barnard is the unknown voice that is speaking on behalf of South Africa to Donald Trump and to Elon Musk. And he asked Elon Musk the other day, this is a couple of weeks ago, walking around, he doesn't play golf, he was walking around the golf course, Elon, and Rian asked him, should anyone care about South Africa? Or should we just let it go down the plug? And Elon thought about it for about a minute. He does do that. He goes deep, you can see the cogs turning, and he said, demographics don't lie. The numbers are against us. However, Trump does care, and the people have got to him, and he's going to act, and he's going to act soon. And once an ambassador is appointed, and I'm hoping it's Joel Pollak, and once an Undersecretary of State for Africa is appointed, Trump's going to come in swinging, and the ANC is going to get clapped.
All right, so it's easy for people in South Africa, and particularly people who think that they're perpetual victims, to throw this out and to say, well, this is just typical. This is like rich white people being mean to the poor ANC, and it's just straight up racism. And why should we take this seriously, especially when people like Rob Hersov and Gareth Cliff are talking about it? Then it's bad. So let's just try and be devil's advocate here and figure out why those people might be hugely bristling at the fact that this is going on in America, and why they might take it as some sort of affront.
Sorry, we're the racists? That's BS. The ANC are racist. Look at the policies they've brought out. All racist policies. The ANC has had 30 years to run this country, and they've run it into the ground. 30 years. And now they're saying, we haven't had a chance. A bad deal was done in 1994. We need to redress inequality. We need to push diversity. We need to do transformation, radical economic transformation. Nonsense. You've had 30 years to do what you needed to do in this country to even things out. And all you've done is break and steal. The ANC is a racist organization. And I've had enough. And I want Donald Trump and America to come in swinging. And I want them to do as much damage to the ANC, Cyril and his merry men, and the moronic MK and Communist Party in this country. Come on in. Baseball bats and all.
It strikes me that South Africans have become almost numb to the fact that there are race-based laws in place in a country which in 1994 was meant to take the whole world forward in a new and I keep thinking of like Tolkien's sunlit uplands, that we were going to lead the world into a post-racial situation. Of course, when Barack Obama became president in America, people thought, all right, good. This is another step towards a world where people don't keep discriminating against each other on the basis of race. In South Africa, we should know that better than anyone else. There are more race-based laws now in South Africa than there were under the apartheid regime. This doesn't embarrass the ANC, and it seems most white South Africans are so like, oh, well, meh, what are we going to do? Even the DA thinks that most of those laws are okay. We can have a bit of affirmative action. That's not discrimination. It's just rebalancing the injustices of the past. What do you say to those people?
I say to those people, it's a cultural thing. If you've had 30 years as the ANC to run this country, and you still can't get your act into gear, you have a cultural problem. I don't look at race, I look at culture. And Black Pen, he's a friend of mine, Pen Wilmslotswell, he's got the Convo, great podcast. He's a fantastic guy.
I know him
but
too.
He's a black racist. I called him a black racist this morning. I don't use the word black and white. He's a racist. He said, 30 years is not enough to redress the imbalances. We need another 20. We need 50 years. And I said, hang on a second. Look at Rwanda, genocide in 1994. We had our election in 1994. They've gone from an absolutely destroyed economy where people are killing each other to a middle-income country. Look at South Korea. Absolute disaster. One of the leading countries in the world. And the ANC in 30 years has done what? Bankrupted every state-owned enterprise, destroyed the infrastructure in this country as though we'd had a war. I mean, as though planes had come in and just bombed everything.
Yeah.
The ANC has been fundamentally moronic, useless, kleptocratic, ineptocratic organization. And Penn on Convo says they need 50 years to redress this equality. And whites are the problem. I mean, he's a racist. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I love him.
And
we've got to fix that mental issue.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I also, in fact, I think he replied to a tweet of mine 5 minutes ago, and I've said to him, listen to what Rob has to say, because we've both had conversations with him. He's very reasonable and rational when you're in.
He's a great guy.
Discussion with him.
He's an intelligent guy, but he's always talking black, white, black, white, black.
I think there are lots of people who just don't want to let go. I've got a very good friend. She just doesn't want to let go of this. It's like part of her identity. She's like caught up in it, and anything she needs to do to defend her victim mentality, she will do. So let's just look at the big overarching story here, because I know you and I also have a common ground in that we both love to see what's happening in Argentina. In fact, the Argentine president, Javier Milei, this morning, there's a clip going around of him speaking at some international conference about how we've got to stop with this victor way of explaining the world. You know, he's expressly directing his ire at Keir Starmer this morning. He said, when something terrible happens, like those killings in Southport, the right thing to do is not to protect a Muslim immigrant because you think Islamophobia is the problem, but to address the problem by saying, here it is, this is the guy who killed these girls. Let's look at why he did it, and let's address it honestly. Instead, they're trying to obfuscate because the demographics of the victim and the killer aren't to their liking. So what do you think about what's going on in Argentina? Because that's his opinion, but his economic policies seem to be bearing very, very significant fruit, and how we as South Africa could learn from that. Everyone in this country wants prosperity, Rob. They're desperate for it. People would love a break. And if there's a way to get there, I think Javier Milei might have the best recipe so far.
You know, not everyone in this country wants prosperity. The ANC doesn't want prosperity. They don't want economic growth, and they want to be able to keep people homeless, hopeless, and in poverty so they can continue to steal. In a properly functioning economy with economic growth, people are successful, people come into the formal economy, and they won't vote ANC. So, sorry, I'm just going to correct you on that one.
Okay.
It's malevolence and incompetence.
So I'm an idiot then for still thinking that would be on their agenda. They're obviously not interested in that. But most people, most people in South Africa do want prosperity. So let's look at what's going on in Argentina. What can we learn from that?
A year and a half ago, Javier Milei, a libertarian, and libertarians, for those who don't understand, believe in small government.
Mm-hmm.
If you take libertarianism to the absolute perfected system, which doesn't exist in the world right now, government should only provide security for the individual and their property rights, the police force, security for members of a country against external threat, the army, and almost nothing else, some form of judiciary and nothing else. Everything else, aviation, electricity, provided by the private sector. Individuals make the decision. The sovereign individual is the ultimate decision maker. That's libertarianism. Javier Milei comes in a year and a half ago against all odds. Almost 100 years of socialism has destroyed one of the richest countries in the world and made it one of the poorest, most inefficient, most corrupt countries in the world, Argentina. Milei comes in a year and a half ago. Inflation's gone from 2,500% to 2% a month and still going down. The deficit's gone down incredibly. He has not removed welfare grants. Good point. Think of South Africa. He has not removed welfare grants. He stripped out the middleman. So there's actually more money for welfare grants if required. And the currency is strengthening and the economy is booming in a year and a half. South Africa is fixable. We can get 5% economic growth. We can fix what's broken, and we can lift people out of poverty in 12 months. The solution is simple, and it's not more government, more socialism, and more regulation. It's less government, no socialism, and no regulation. Remove as much regulation as possible. South Africa will be fixed in a second. And, you know, you talk about being a vassal of America and the West. Well, I think that's a hell of a lot better than being a vassal of the ANC or a vassal of those nasty BRICS countries. The Judeo-Christian Western countries are the most successful countries in the world at every metric: education, health, happiness, economic growth, peace, liberty. Why wouldn't you want to be a vassal of the West, of the Judeo-Christian West?
Well, I think a lot of people say, no, I'd prefer to be, if we're going to be vassals at all, and really for some people, it's you've got a slave in your head. You're just looking for a better master. They'll say Russia, China. They'll say...
They're morons. They're morons.
Why?
Because Russia has a country that has vast economic resources, but has murdered millions and millions and millions of its citizens through moronic policies of collectivization, through aggressive military campaigns that make no sense whatsoever, which they tend to lose these days.
Yeah.
And a destructive economic policy called socialism, which just keeps people impoverished and under their control. China is a state-controlled, they call themselves communists. They're not. They have capitalism at the basic level, which is the natural element of society. Humans are naturally capitalists. They're naturally builders, investors, creators, improvers. And people look to China and say, oh, look at the incredible growth they've had over the last 10, 15 years. Well, it's coming off now. They've gone from 7 to 6 to 5%. The wheels are coming off because central control doesn't work.
Okay, so let's talk about America for a second, because that seems to be all over everyone's mind this morning. So up to now, our relationship with the US has been that they've been handing out lots of freebies to us. We've taken them with both hands. We've been distributing, they say 20 to 25% of our ARVs, some people say more, have come from the United States. There's this organization called USAID, which isn't a benevolent charity that's just handing out free stuff, which our government love. They love a charity that's handing out free stuff, especially when they don't have to pay for it. But what is our relationship going to be going forward? Because Trump says, I'm cutting this stuff off. You're not getting any freebies anymore. We're going to look at what you're doing, what kind of laws you're bringing to bear, things like the NHI, things like the Expropriation Act. What do you think our relationship is going to be in a year's time as opposed to where it is now with the US?
So Trump's pulled all aid across the board. He's done a sweeping across the board for 3 months, 90 days, okay, to review where the money's going specifically, not just to these umbrella organizations like the Millennium Trust in Stellenbosch. And I didn't have time to investigate it, but it seems to give money to the Daily Maverick, Amabungane, Gun-Free South Africa.
Oh, really?
Come on, we need our guns. Black Sash, which I don't know what they do anymore. Helen Suzman Foundation, which other than inviting that anti-Semite is Imtiaz Suleiman to speak, I think is quite a good organization. The Scalabrini Center, integrating refugees. So this kind of entity, you kind of look at it from a very high level. It's got these nice sounding words like, save democracy and improve freedom. But when you dig deeper, most of them are very leftist organizations who have been infiltrated by lefties, like Daily Maverick. It's corporate, anti-capitalist, very lefty organization. And Trump is going to look at every level where the money goes, which country, how much, and exactly to which organization and what those organizations are doing. And my instinct is that, he'll save his, I think it's $50 billion a year, $50 billion a year,
sure,
USAID budget. I don't know how much comes to South Africa. I know $2 billion goes to Georgia in Russia, just south of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's $1 billion-ish US dollars to South Africa in various different forms.
Mm-hmm.
I think very little of that will survive. And it is a gift from America. They have the right to take it back.
Well,
all it's doing, like charity does, sorry to monologue, is put a sticker on a problem, a band-aid on a problem that is created by the ANC government. All it's doing is plugging a gap that the ANC government laughs at because they should be solving that problem and they aren't.
Well, it's not an accident that so many people who are very, very upset about the aid being cut are also the people who are the beneficiaries of that aid, who are also the people who've never liked Trump in the first place and are now going to be the people who accuse him of being very mean and very orange and very bad and very racist, even though he's not cutting aid specifically to South Africa or Africa. He's cutting it to everybody. It's interesting. These people just don't seem to be able to deal with the cognitive dissonance in their heads. They don't see it as being intellectually dishonest. Do you think that a lot of these NGOs who have actually been masquerading as NGOs when effectively they are left-wing political activist organizations are going to get out of the way now that US funding has been cut to them?
I think if you took every single one of the recipients of USAID funding, it would be 25% good organizations that are promoting, property rights, freedom, libertas, and good things that we believe in. And 75% have wonderful sounding names, wonderful intentions, and been infiltrated by woke leftists who've diverted the plans to their own evil ends. And, Daily Maverick is on that list. Why isn't the money going to the Free Market Foundation, AfriForum, Daily Friend, Biz News, the Gareth Cliff Show, proper media organization?
Let me tell you,
Daily Maverick is an anti-capitalist, wanky, lefty organization. They do some very good reporting. They do attack the ANC, but then they attack, people like us. So, and that nasty little shit, can we swear on your show?
Go on.
Zapiro, that little wanky leftist. I mean, dump him.
Yeah.
Dave Dubell's a proper cartoonist.
Yeah.
There we go. Smack.
Well, listen, I mean, we've never taken a single cent of any government's money anywhere in the world. And I'd be happy for anyone to prove me wrong. We've self-funded and got ourselves going for 10 years, and we continue to do so. So I'm not interested in being given free handouts from a government and then having to toe the line. But it seems like a lot of publications don't mind doing that. They don't mind being someone's cat's paw for the right price. And many of them, even though they've got all this free money from various places and various organizations and NGOs, they still seem to be unable to make a business out of it, right?
So look at UCT. UCT took this anti-Israel stance, okay? This completely ludicrous ANC, Iran-backed anti-Israel stance. And UCT is going to lose hundreds and hundreds of millions of rand as a result. Well, good for them. They deserve to lose that because these lefties do not think through the economic consequences of their actions. And the pendulum has swung big time in America, internationally. I mean, look at Argentina, look at Salvador, look at the USA. It's swinging way back, and hopefully it's going to swing further than center. And, Viktor Orban in Hungary, I've always had a question mark over my head about him, but he looks like he's been the mainstay of holding, the Judeo-Christian free market, free enterprise, the West's flag in Europe. And Europe is now swinging back. So lefties, woke, goodbye.
Yeah.
But we haven't cracked it yet in South Africa. And we need this pressure from America to help do it. So, kick these lefties into the box and get rid of the ANC as quickly as possible.
All right. And whether or not that happens, this pressure will be applied. So let's just talk about what South Africa's done. You know, the fuck around and find out principle. What has happened in this country that would have sparked the ire of any international administration, NGO, interest group, activist group? Let's just look at some of the things that have happened. So we have been actively supporting terrorists around the world, which is not that great. We've had people who have been in completely unrepentant ways spreading, you know, racial animus, which includes Julius Malema singing songs like Kill the Boer. Let's be frank about that. There are laws like this Bella Act, the NHI, the Expropriation Act. Let's talk about those for a minute and find out whether or not South Africans are going to say Rob Hersov and Gareth Cliff are just thrilled that Donald Trump is going to come and punish the ANC because they're political opposition to the points of view that we've expressed. But it's actually about consequences, right?
It's three things. Three things have caught the attention. One, farm murders. When Ernst Roots and the AfriForum boys got onto Tucker Carlson and highlighted the issue that a farmer, not just white, a farmer was 3 times more likely to be killed in this country than a policeman or woman who was twice as likely to be killed as an average citizen. That caught the attention of the Americans and the international world. And it still continues, by the way.
Yeah.
So number one. 2 was Iran bribing the ANC to put this anti-Israel case through the ICJ.
Right.
The ANC are prostitutes. They'll just take money from wherever they can get it. Okay?
Right.
They'll bend over and just take it from whoever pay them enough.
Yeah.
And that has pissed off America no end. And it should, and the international community.
Right.
And the third is EWC. If you had to have a stupider name for a bill, forget about what it says in the bill. People go, it's not as relevant. It doesn't matter. It says expropriation without compensation. They can take not just land, but property. And take the watch off your arm if they want to. And that's just sitting there. So those 3 things. 1, farm murders. 2, the ICJ and anti-Semitic and anti-Israel ANC. And 3, EWC. And EWC with the straw that broke the camel's back.
So then, if
what's coming
Trump,
now.
So if Trump is,
we don't.
Sorry. So if he's going to punish the country, then obviously many of us will suffer, and there's going to be a bit of pain for ordinary citizens like you and me. Possibly a lot of pain for some people, and of course that will be played up by the media too. That look how horrible he is. The fact is, like, everything has consequences, right? What will this mean for the ANC in particular? Do you think he'll go so far as to put a list of people together, as they did with the oligarchs in Russia, and say, these ANC people, we're going to confiscate any international assets they might have. We may prevent them from traveling. These are crooks. We're going to put them on the bad people list. Do you think that might happen?
Please. Yes, please do that. So the one negative consequence of America coming in swinging with a baseball bat is to chase these morons of the ANC into the arms of the Russias and Chinas and Irans.
They will, okay? And they will. They'll always be trusted to make the worst decision.
Yes, own goal champions. So that's the one negative. But I mean, it is what it is. But putting them on whatever it's called, the red list, banning them from going to Western countries, making them terrorists, freezing their international assets. Please, America, do it. Start with Cyril, but get all of them, including Malema. And, put pressure on the UAE to go and grab, the money that Zuma handed on a plate to the Guptas. No one's talking about that anymore, are they?
No.
The Guptas need to be thrown in jail and have all of their assets stripped from them. And there are Guptas living in America. Chuck them in jail too. I don't know what tactics America is going to do specifically, but freezing aid worldwide is the beginning, so they can analyze each of these projects and see which of them have been funding the enemy, terrorists, evil leftist woke organizations, and strip those out, and then return the money to the organizations that are actually doing good, because some are. I think Helen Suzman Foundation is probably one of them. But then instead of Daily Maverick, start backing Daily Friend, Institute of Race Relations, and Free Market Foundation and AfriForum.
Rob, what about BRICS? Because you pay attention to all the talk around a BRICS currency and a BRICS bank, and South Africa is now allied with Brazil and Russia and India and China, and this might be a very good alliance for us. And up to a short while ago, I might have agreed, while Joe Biden was president, that America was on a downhill trajectory, and that perhaps allying with them long term was not the smartest thing, and maybe China and India are the new global superpowers, even though they're still nascent. How well do you think that's been interpreted by our government? And what is our status inside of BRICS? Do you think that we can honestly benefit from this? Come on, treat it seriously, Rob. Treat this seriously.
BRICS is a waste of time. It's a bunch of disconnected countries sitting in a room trying to create something they'll never create. America is the greatest superpower on the planet and is getting stronger. It's by far, militarily, technologically, economically, and culturally.
Yeah,
it rules the world, and it's going to get stronger and stronger with Trump in charge and Elon Musk and other extraordinary people being let loose there in intellect, creativity. You're going to see technological developments through the roof. This deep fake thing out of China is a good thing. It's a wake-up call to American creativity. You watch, in the next few weeks, it could be 3 or 4 American companies announcing 10 times better than deep fake, and China will get battered back to its box. South Africa is irrelevant in BRICS, okay? Spineless Cyril is head of the G20 for the next year. He loves this all sort of wanky, sit around a table and do nothing stuff. And he's good at it because he is wanky and spineless and a do-nothing human being.
Yeah.
So ideal.
By the way, just sorry, someone
nobody respects South Africa. Nobody respects South Africa.
Someone accused you in the comments just now of having been part of CR17 when he first ran and backing him. Is that true?
Prove it. I never liked Cyril.
Okay, carry on. Sorry, offspring. I hate interrupting your rant. Your rant.
I'm on a rant. You know why I'm on a rant? I'm pissed off this morning because Penn pissed me off. I love him.
Keep going.
I love him. And he just came out as a bloody racist. It pisses me off. He's such a good guy. He's the future of South Africa.
All right, well, let's hear some more about this BRICS thing, because he also thinks that, and I think there are a lot of people in South Africa who do that. Well, this is giving them the excuse to just drop the mask and say, all right, well, actually, there is animus between South Africans, that we are actually a hugely divided country. And look, this is all the proof you ever needed, that the Americans are just interested in the white people in South Africa and in the economy of South Africa. They don't give a damn about black people, and this proves it.
How do I put this? You don't want me to put it politely, do you?
No.
If you are a loser, you will look at America and say, I don't like America. And you'll immediately go to the other pole, Russia, China. Oh, these guys will look after me. I can't compete. The Americans are too good. Deep down, you're inferior. So I'll go with the other guys. But BRICS is mostly a bunch of disconnected, there's no mission, there's no policy, there's no combination that pulls BRICS together other than trying to defend against America. Let me just tell you why. In there are some extraordinarily good capitalist, high growth, incredible countries like India.
Mm-hmm.
And Brazil's always the country of the future. Brazil's the country of the future and always will be. I mean, I think it's got a great PR company, Brazil, but it's a pretty crap country. I wouldn't want to ever go back there. No, it's just mediocre restaurants, mediocre hotels, not great beaches. And I never see one pretty girl when I ever go there. Not one. It's Giselle Bundchen. I mean, they'd say Giselle Bundchen, one. We've got
no, but she's German. She's German. She's not even Brazilian.
Or whatever. Brazil's a second-rate country and always will be. But within there are countries that are good, bad, mediocre, and ones that no one cares about, like South Africa.
Yeah.
So forget BRICS. They're never going to get their act together. America and the American, South Korea, Japan, Europe, wanky Europe, Argentina, and the other countries in the world will kick BRICS ass and continue to do so. Forget them. Don't worry about it. They're never going to create a competing currency. I'll stop there. BRICS,
All right.
Forget BRICS. It's a waste of time.
So let me hear your thoughts on something I asked Chris Wyatt about earlier. America's imposed tariffs. This is Donald Trump's foreign policy initiative now. He's imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico because he says, listen, we're paying for your security. We're paying for everything. You're sending, in Mexico's case, illegal immigrants across the border all the time. Canada, in your case, you're getting a free ride. And we're going to impose tariffs. And then Justin Trudeau of Canada, everybody's favorite Ken doll, he says, well, we'll just impose 25% right back at you, Mr. Trump. How does this end, Rob?
Trudeau's a pussy. I didn't even know why Trump offered him to be governor of Canada. He's a juvenile narcissist leftist. Get rid of him. Bring in Pierre Poilievre.
Oh, okay.
And Mexico will buckle.
So you don't feel strongly about Canada or Mexico yet.
I don't care about. Do you know my wife and I play a game called punching above and below the weight? Okay, so New Zealand punches above its weight.
Yeah,
because of the All Blacks, because it's a tiny little country, and it's per capita the best sporting country in the world if you take Olympic medals. My analysis. Canada punches massively below its weight. Ask any intelligent human being any facts about Canada. You go, the Rockies, those guys in red with the axes. That's it. No one knows anything about Canada. It's a stupid country. It's a pointless country. Make it part of America. It's like Belgium, and make Belgium, split it up, Holland and France. What's the point? And it's a country that punches massively below its weight, Canada, unlike New Zealand, above its weight, particularly as we've got rid of Jacinda.
Yeah.
So who cares about Canada? America's flatten them quickly. Once Pierre Poilievre is in place, things will settle. And America's got its borders sorted out. And I agree on Greenland, by the way.
Oh, do you?
The point. What's the point of Denmark managing Greenland? I mean, come on. America should manage it. End of story. Move on.
Rob, what about the effects of all of this on the South African economy? I mean, you pay attention to this because, as you've told people many times, you're South African, you believe in this place, you're invested here, you care about what happens to our economy. It's been mismanaged, and all of that is obviously true. That's not a controversial thing to say. But with all of this is going to affect the rand very badly. It's going to affect investment into South Africa very badly, perhaps not so badly as the laws that the ANC's been promulgating recently, but it will hit us hard, right? There are going to be, we're going to feel these consequences ourselves as ordinary, good people who are trying to get to work, pay for our kids to go to school, pay the petrol prices, the outrageous Eskom increases. We're going to be the ones who hurt.
Yes. And a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, easy for Rob to say it. He can survive it. And I can. I don't have to be in South Africa. I can be the last chopper out of Saigon. I can go and live anywhere I want and say, I've had enough. But I don't. I stay here. I take the hits every single day for saying what I'm saying. And I've lost millions and millions of dollars. The DFIs, the Development Finance Institutions, Swed Fund, Nor Fund, CDC of the UK, whatever its new name is, and the American one, under the Biden administration, deplatformed me, kicked me out of a fund that I helped raise, $220 million European. I've never told this story.
Why?
$220 million African Series A technology investment fund. They kicked me out because I was too political. Okay? So guys, I've lost millions and millions on many, many different things. I've deplatformed by Bishop's Old Boys Club, kicked off the presentation I'd made, invited a year before, 2 days before, Wilbur van Niekerk and all those lefties kicked me out. Bang, 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 bang. I do get hit. It's cost me a lot of money for doing what I do. However, South Africa is going to suffer. The rand could go to 50.
Jesus. 50?
Well, I was going to say 100, but let's say to 50. To the dollar, we are going to suffer serious consequences. But if you have cancer and you decide not to do chemo, you're going to die. You're going to die. But if you have cancer and you do chemo, there are horrible side effects, lethargy, sickness, hair falling out, but you could survive. So if we want to fix this country, if we want to get rid of the ANC and have a capitalist, libertarian, pro-market, free country, we're going to have to take the pain. And if we can't do it internally, if our South African corporates are too shit scared to stand up and call out the ANC,
which they are,
Winston Churchill's quote that you feed the crocodile hoping that you'll be the last person the crocodile eats, which is exactly how the South African corporates have been acting. Cowards to a man and a woman. Unless we take the pain now, and as Willem Petter says, create the crisis, we're never, ever going to come out of it, because the ANC are just going to boil us like a frog in a pot, hotter and hotter and hotter. And you just think, I'm going to survive, and you don't. So let's bring it on. Let's bring on the crisis. See where it takes us.
So you've been very bullish about Bitcoin, among other things, which is another thing people. I want to get into this because I think it's a way that ordinary South Africans, and we've got Bitcoin Butt in the comments who's saying soon 1 Bitcoin will be worth 10 million rand. So I don't think that's completely out of the offing at the moment. And I do believe that South Africans do, whatever money they do have, we've got to try and keep that away from the grasping, thieving hands of the ANC. But we also have to try and find a way to protect ourselves against what is going to be some rocky terrain up ahead. So
I'm glad you raised this, Gareth.
Yeah, let's talk about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is the only investment that is completely uncorrelated to the world monetary system. And let me give you an example why it's so important. I transfer money from my British account to a business in Europe or Swiss account to whatever. There's delay, there's KYC, and there's KFC, I'm going to say. There's know your client. And in some cases, they refuse to do it. So if I have my British account, will not send pounds, dollars, or euros to my Coinbase or Kraken account. They won't do it. They refuse. How can they tell me what I can and can't do with my money?
Exactly.
Okay. 1. 2, Cynthia Loomis, who's pushing forward this Bitcoin as a strategic reserve bill in America, gave a very good example. There was a guy in Russia who didn't want to serve in the army against Ukraine. He had Bitcoin. He remembered his 24 code words, and he walked out of the country to a free country. All his money was in Bitcoin. The code was in his head, and he gets to the other country. He has externalized all his capital, and the government can do nothing. It's your money.
Yeah.
You take it with you. And Bitcoin, I'll give you a quick explanation to the listeners, okay, and viewers. This is simplistic view. There are 2 blockchains. Just stay with me here. I want to explain what blockchain is. It's a certification of digital assets. That's all it is, okay? There are 2 blockchains. There's the Bitcoin blockchain and the everything else blockchain. Solana, Ripple, Ethereum,
etc.
The difference between the 2, and this one is the Bitcoin blockchain is so much bigger than the everything else blockchain in value. There's a difference between the 2. The Bitcoin blockchain the rules cannot be changed by any human beings. They're set in place. There will be 21 million Bitcoin ever produced and no more. It's the most perfect economic system ever created. No human being can affect what happens with it other than buying and selling Bitcoin and using it as currency, maybe. Think of it as the next gold standard. And forget about Solana and Ripple and everything else and stable coins, blah, 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 blah. Forget it. Buy only Bitcoin. You can take it with you. It's uncorrelated to what goes on in the world. And it's I'm not saying deflationary, but inflation does not eat your value. And it's actually gone under $100,000 this morning, which is great because I want to actually buy some more now.
Right.
My prediction, I got 100,000 absolutely right for the end of last year, is $250,000 this year. It's going to go from 100 to 250.
It's a hell of an increase. But
don't buy just because you think Rob's a genius. I'm not a genius. I've made thousands of mistakes. Go and study for 2 days, like my wife did, on YouTube, everything about Bitcoin and all the other cryptos.
Yeah,
and you'll become a Bitcoin maximalist like me.
Teach yourself.
Monologue.
Rely on yourself. I was talking to Leigh-Ann earlier in the first hour of the show this morning about how Discovery are fixing potholes. People are sinking boreholes. We're all putting up solar. We're becoming as independent as we can of the government, which is good. But then we see things all around us falling into disrepair. The roads, the water infrastructure, just about everything.
Not in the Cape.
Well, not in the Cape. Well, we can talk about that a little bit too, because you and I both have our problems with the DA as much as we have with the ANC. Maybe not as much, but certainly they're there. You've got to safeguard yourself against this stuff. Otherwise, you're just going to be a victim of circumstance. And I think that for many people, they've already given up and gone, well, I'm a victim of circumstance, so let's just see what happens. I mean, there is a way out of this. I don't want people to have the impression that you're sketching this doomsday scenario, which is something a lot of people in the media do, without giving them some way to deal with it. And Bitcoin's one of those. But let's just talk about where politically South Africa's moved in the last year, because it's actually a good story. The fact that the ANC are no longer the majority party is a massive victory for multi-party possibilities. Whether or not those parties are actually picking up their responsibilities and taking them seriously is another question. How do you feel about places like, Mpumalanga, which is under ANC control almost exclusively? About Johannesburg, which is just not getting its act together. About Cape Town, which seems to be, and for many people, it appears to be the dream. But obviously, Cape Town's very expensive, and there are massive inequalities, and those come up all the time. How are you feeling about all of that?
So look carefully at AfriForum and Sakelige and all those organizations. They've come up with this incredible concept a while back, actually. It's only just we've woken up to it now, called state proofing. The national government became more and more control in Pretoria, centralization, create state-owned enterprises, and the ANC just took them on. It just took and continued and made more government. And what Sakelige and AfriForum and the other organizations like that have said, we have to state-proof ourselves against the government at the street, village, town, city, municipality level. Become independent and look after your street, look after your community, and state-proof yourself against the government. Bitcoin is the way to do it financially.
Yeah.
I mean, you should keep all of your spare cash in Bitcoin. It'll be volatile, the price, but it's going up.
Yeah.
And everything else, have your own gun, have your own security, have your own education, whether it's home education or private education, if you can afford it, and state-proof yourself, because this country is not going forward. We have under 1% economic growth. And have you heard anyone in the ANC or GNU talk about economic growth?
No.
They're not. I asked Gayton McKenzie about that, and he said, Rob, there are three priorities for the GNU in this order. You ready?
Yeah.
1, keep MK and EFF out of government.
Okay.
And he said, and that's the only thing that the GNU is working on at this moment.
What are the other two priorities?
Yeah. 2 is crime and security, make South Africa a safer place. And 3 is economic growth. And they haven't even got on to number 2 and 3. So think about a government where its main priority is keeping the bad guys out. I mean, you're just going to go nowhere for 3 years.
Yeah. And frankly, people will eventually go, why are they trying so hard to keep those guys out? Maybe there's something that those guys can do that they can't. That's inevitably what happens.
No, because Gayton said if you walk out of the GNU, you never come back. And he said, if you want, you worried about this law, expropriation without compensation, which he's fighting against.
Yeah.
He said, Zuma this time knows exactly how to steal this country blind, and he's ready to do so. Last time, he didn't steal any money. He let everyone else steal money. This time, he's going to come in and forget expropriation without compensation. It's going to be take it all and destroy it all. So he is a real threat. MK is a real threat.
So are there things going on in the GNU that are positive? Because I think for many people, it just looks like it's a project.
Lipstick on a pig.
It's a project to keep Cyril in office. It's very clever from his point of view, because he's now got these other parties to make it look like he's got consensus and he's the unifier and all of these things. Actually, it's just keeping him out of the clutches of the ANC factions that hate him.
Cyril is completely isolated. there's almost no support. You know, on the Bella Bill, even though it didn't end up where it should have ended up, he did consult his GNU members. But on expropriation without compensation, he just signed it.
Yeah.
So I think the South African Communist Party, COSATU, have pictures of him being shagged by a buffalo or shagging a buffalo. They have parlor times 10 on him, and they just held this in front of him and said, Cyril, you sign this EWC now, or we're going to release this, you know, these buffalo pictures into the media. No, they've got something over him. There's a sword of Damocles, and he's too scared. And all he wants to do is his wanky G20 meetings. Yeah. And he doesn't want to be involved in running the country, but he's stuck because Greta and the boys have said, you, pal, are staying in your position. End of story.
Wow. All right. Apparently,
you like the buffalo analogy.
I like that a lot. Apparently, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is going to be here in 3 weeks' time. So that'll also put pressure on the government. How do you think they're going to respond to Trump's tweet from this morning? Because we can always rely on a Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, and the new minister there, who was our former justice minister. Don't know how good he is. He doesn't seem like a horrible human being, but I don't know how competent he is. Certainly justice has been left in tatters. How do you think they'll respond to this? Because they can always be relied upon to fuck it up.
Yes, true. I think they don't care. They're sitting in their mansions with their stolen money and the parlor rubbish. They've all got their money. They don't care. They don't care about South Africa. The ANC do not care. They don't care. So they're just going to go, well, we don't care. And that's the terrible thing.
All right. Well,
they don't care.
Listen, I'm gonna let you go. It's always such a roller coaster ride when you do come on. Thanks again, Rob. Always lots to think about, lots to talk about. And keep saying what you say and keep doing what you do.
I'm going to take a pounding from today. But anyway, I enjoyed it. Thank you, Gareth.
Of course you will. Thank you. Bye-bye. There we go.
Bye, everyone.
The ever unafraid Rob Hersov. Whether you like him or not, and there are lots of people who do, and there are lots of people who don't, the man says what he thinks.
Yeah.
Which to me is just terrific. At least I know where I stand with you.
It's good to hear an opinion and not something that's guided by the organization or the government that you're sitting in,
or the people who are paying
or the journal, or the news agency.
Yeah, who pays the piper, right? Because Rob doesn't care. He's got money, like he says, he can live anywhere. He's here to say and make a difference wherever he can. Okay, so a couple of things we want to do because people are going to be pissed off if we don't touch on some sport. James, get your ass in here quickly. Let's do it. Rapid fire sport. And before that, Leigh-Ann, is it true, the story that I threw forward to earlier on where I said that there was a woman who commented, "Hey guys," on her own wanted poster and was found hiding in a pile of toys?
Yes.
Very important. We covered the important stuff here. That's what you need to know.
It's a very short video that I have for you. And she's a known troublemaker in the UK.
Okay.
She, on the police's Facebook page, they put up her wanted poster there, and she commented, "Hey guys," as if taunting them and saying, "Come and get me." 22-year-old woman.
She's a shit stirrer.
In Manchester.
Oh yeah. All right.
And they finally found her because of this comment. And this is how they found her, if you want to watch. Oh, it's not loading?
Oh, for God's sake.
Okay.
Yeah, so. Oh, so why won't it cooperate, James? What the hell? You know? No, I mean, you had the whole time I was talking to Rob Hersov to get it ready for us, and you didn't.
Anyway, they found her in a house. It's not clear whether it's hers or not. Hiding under a pile of children's toys next to a cot.
That's a good place to hide.
She was lying there dead still underneath all these toys. And you can see the cops going in and going, "We found her, we found her." And she starts screaming. She's lying there like a stiff doll.
Okay, so she's just an idiot.
She was arrested on suspicion of failing to appear at court for 3 counts of assault of an emergency worker. She assaulted an emergency worker, drugs offenses, and theft.
Okay.
Good person.
Now she's going to jail.
Hopefully she takes one of her comfort teddies with her.
I mean, she had the stupid... she had a choice to not say anything, but she had to go on there and say, "Hey, guys."
obviously a troublemaker.
Yeah, she can't get enough of this. She's just like, she enjoys it. She gets a thrill out of it. All right, James, what happened over the weekend in sport? What happened most importantly with the Arsenal game last night, which is what most people be keen
I
on?
thought you were going to say what happened most importantly with
Accrington
Accrington
Stanley as well.
They
Yes, of
lost
course.
this weekend, guys.
Aw.
Bad news for them. They're now
Yeah.
21st in their league, 4 points from relegation. So not good signs for Accrington
Aw.
Stanley. But in the other game that people care about, Arsenal Man City, 5-1 was the score there for Arsenal. So Ben probably just didn't sleep from excitement, I
I'm
assume.
sure.
So the Be Humble derby ended 5-1, which is crazy. The end of the Premier League is kind of almost around the corner. It's getting very exciting. So
Cool.
we're getting there. Liverpool won again this weekend,
Mhm.
2-0 against Bournemouth. Forest, they beat Brighton 7-0.
Okay.
And Man United, they did what Man United does every weekend, and they
Lose.
lost.
Yeah.
They lost 2-0 to Crystal Palace. So yeah, Liverpool's still sitting pretty at the top of the log there. In the PSL, the Soweto derby happened this weekend at a sold-out FNB stadium. Pirates winning that one 1-0 with a last-minute penalty. Sundowns also won this weekend. They won 4-0 against Golden Arrows, and they sit at the top of the log by 6. There was also rugby this weekend. The French played Wales. They won 43-0. Scotland, they played Italy. Scotland won 31-9. Ireland, they played England and won 27-22. And then lastly, the world of cricket. The SA20 is coming kind of to a close. On Tuesday, the Power Royals will play Cape Town at 5:30. And on Wednesday, Sunrisers Eastern Cape will play the Joburg Super Kings also at 5:30. In the world of women's cricket, the under-19...
Oh, very important, yeah.
And this is what Ben has written. The under-19 Chicks World Cup, those were his words.
Yeah.
South Africa made it to the final and then fucked it against India.
Mm-hmm. Is that what he said? He fucked it
That's
against
what he
India,
said.
right? Okay.
And that is the sport. Israel Adesanya got knocked out quite badly this weekend. He got poked in the eye, and then he never saw it coming, and there he was out like a light. So he's 4-5 is his record over the past year. He's lost 5.
And let's congratulate you on being dressed very smartly this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, we noticed these things.
I also got a haircut.
Yes, exactly. No, you look. Last week you looked like a homeless person. This week you look very respectable.
Yeah.
Well done.
Look good, feel good is what they say.
There we are.
That's what they say.
Dress for the job you want.
There you go. It's only taken me about 6 months, but here we are.
All right, very good. Well, that brings us to 8 o'clock, nice and round and on the dot. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. There's been a lot of stuff to think about. And poor Leigh-Ann, she's got a sore back. She didn't even get to tell us why. She had to push a car uphill.
I pushed a car uphill yesterday without warming up. No notice.
So now her back is
It's seized, and I have bronchitis. It's just a mess.
But we'll find out more about that in a week's time when you're in traction.
Yeah. when you call in and I'm hanging from
Leigh-Ann's hanging from some sort of thing from the roof. All right, we'll get better.
Thank you.
Very good. And we will see you on Wednesday at 6 a.m. bright and early. Be good. Cheers.